Hello, everybody, and welcome back for a new book reading. Yes, you'd see a new book reading searching, but aren't you still reading the other one? Yes, I am. I'm still reading Stephen King's Cell, but the other day I had to go to the library and get that book again because you have to turn it back and then get it back and then the whole story. And while I was there, picking up Cell again, I saw another book from Stephen King, a smaller one, a much smaller one, because Cell is quite big actually. And I thought I want to maybe read an in-between smaller story, or maybe a smaller book, and I found one called Elevation, and it's also from Stephen King. And to summarize the story a little bit, it's about a guy who is losing weight without getting thinner. And they don't really know what's going on with him. He has this weird condition. And yeah, also the town where he lives in, or the village where he lives, there's also weird stuff going on over there. And yeah, when I was reading the summarization of the story, I was a little bit intrigued. I was like, okay, let me give it a try. So this book only has 5 chapters, so it's a very small book. It's not gonna take me that long. So without further ado, let's check it out. Here we go. Chapter 1: Losing Weight. Scott Carey knocked on the door of the Ellis condo unit, and Bob Ellis, everyone in Highland Acres still called him Dr. Bob, although he was 5 years retired. Let him in. Well, Scott, here you are. 10 on the dot. Now, what can I do for you? Scott was a big man, 6'4" in his stocking feet, with a bit of a belly growing in front. I'm not sure, probably nothing, but I have a problem. I hope not a big one, but it might be. One you don't want to talk to your regular doctor about? Ellis was 74, with thinning silver hair and a small limp that didn't slow him down much on the tennis court, which was where he and Scott had met and became friends. Not close friends, maybe, but friends, sure enough. Oh, I went, Scott said, and got a checkup, which was overdue. Blood work, urine, prostate, the whole 9 yards. Everything checked out. Cholesterol a little high, but still in the normal range. It was diabetes I was worried about. Webb MD suggested that was the most likely. Until he knew about the clothes, that was. The thing with the clothes wasn't on any website, medical or otherwise. It certainly had nothing to do with diabetes. Ellis led him into the living room, where a big bay window overlooked the 14th green of the Castle Rock gated community where he and his wife now lived. Dr. Bob played the occasional round, but mostly stuck to tennis. It was Ellis's wife who enjoyed golf, and Scott suspected that was the reason they were living here, when they were spending winters in a similar sports-oriented development in Florida. Ellis said, if you're looking for Myra, she's at her Methodist women's group. I think that's right, although it might be one of her town committees. Tomorrow she's off to Portland for a meeting of the New England Mycology. I can't even pronounce that word. I really can't pronounce the word. I'm so sorry. That woman hops around like a hen on a hot griddle. Take off your coat, sit down, and tell me what's on your mind. Although it was early October and not particularly cold, Scott was wearing a North Face parka. When he took it off and laid beside him on the sofa, the pockets jingled. Would you like coffee? Tea? I think there's a breakfast. Pastry, if... I'm losing weight, Scott said abruptly. That's what's on my mind. It's sort of funny, you know. I used to steer clear of the bathroom scale because these last 10 years or so, I haven't been crazy about the news I got from it. Now I'm on it first thing every morning. Alice nodded. I see. No reason for him to avoid the bathroom scale, Scott thought. The man was what his grandmother would have called a stuffed string. He'd probably live another 20 years if a wild card didn't come out of the deck. Maybe even make the century. I certainly understand the skill avoidance syndrome. Saw it all the time when I was practicing. I also saw the opposite, compulsive weighing, but usually in bulimics and anorexics. You hardly look like one of those. He leaned forward, hands clasped between his skinny thighs. You do understand that I'm retired, don't you? I can advise, but I can't prescribe. And my advice would probably be for you to go back to your regular doctor and make a full disclosure. Scott smiled. I suspect my doc would want me in the hospital for tests right away. And last month I landed a big job designing interlocking websites for a department store chain. I won't go into details, but it's a plum. I was very fortunate to get the gig. It's a large step up for me, and I can do it without moving out of Castle Rock. That's the beauty of the computer age. But you can't work if you fall ill, Alice said. You're a smart guy, Scott, and I'm sure you know that weight loss is just a marker for diabetes. It's a marker for cancer, among other things. How much weight are we talking about? 28 pounds. Scott looked out the window and observed white golf carts moving over green grass beneath a blue sky. As a photograph, it would have looked good on the Highland Acres website. He was sure they had one. Everyone did these days, even roadside stands selling corn and apples had websites. But he hadn't created it. He had moved on to bigger things. So far, Bob Ellis grinned, showing teeth that were still his own. That's a fair amount, alright. But my guess is you could stand to lose it. You move pretty well on the tennis court for a big man. You put in your time on the machines and the health club. But carrying too many pounds puts a strain not just on the heart, but the whole kit and caboodle. Caboodle? Yeah, caboodle, okay. I have no idea what that is. As I'm sure you know, from WebMD, he rolled his eyes at this, and Scott smiled. What are you now? Yes, Scott says. Bob laughed. What do you think this is? The county fair? I'm fresh out of Cupid dolls? You were in general practice for what? 35 years? 42. Still, don't be modest. You weigh thousands of patients, thousands of times. Scott stood up. Tall man with a big frame wearing jeans, a flannel shirt, and scuffed up Georgia Giants. He looked more like a woodsman or a horse wrangler than a web designer. Guess my weight. We'll get to my feet later. Dr. Bob cast an eye on professional up and down Scott Carvey, 66 inches. 76 inches. More like 78 in the boots. He paid particular attention to the curve of belly over the belt and the long, tight muscles built up by leg pressers and hack squats on machines. Dr. Bob now avoided. Unbutton your shirt and hold it open. Scott did this, revealing a gray tee with University of Maine Athletic Department on the front. Bob saw a broad chest, muscular but developing those adipose deposits wise ass kids like to call mantids. I'm going to say Ellis paused Interested in a challenge now. I'm going to say 235, maybe 240, which means you must have been up around 270 before you started to lose. I must say you carried it well on the tennis court. That much I would have guessed. Scott remembered how happy he had been when he finally mustered the courage to get on the scale earlier this month. Delighted, actually. The steady rate of the weight loss since then was worrisome. Yes, but only a little. It was the clothes thing that had changed worry to fright. You didn't need WebMD to tell you that the clothes thing was more than strange. It was fucking outrage outside a golf cart trundled past. In it were two middle-aged men, one in pink pants, one in green, both overweight. Scott thought they would have done themselves some good by ditching the cart and walking their round instead. Scott? Dr. Bob said. Are you there? Or did I lose you? I'm here, Scott said. The last time we played tennis, I did go 240. I know, because that was when I finally got on the scale. I decided the time had come to drop a few pounds. I was starting to get all out of breath by the third set, but as of this morning, I weighed 212. He sat down again next to his parka, which gave him a jingle. Bob eyed him carefully. You don't look like 212 to me, Scott. Pardon me for saying, but you look quite a bit heavier than that. But healthy. Yes, not sick. No, not to look at you anyway, but have you got a scale? I bet you do. Let's check it out. Dr. Bob considered him for a moment, wondering if Scott's actual problem might be in the grey matter above his eyebrows. In his experience, it was mostly women who tended to be neurotic about their weight, but it happened with men too. Alright, let's do that. Follow me. Bob led him into the study stocked with bookshelves. There was a framed anatomy chart on one wall and a line of diplomas on another. Scott was staring at the paperweight between Al's computer and his printer. And with this, I'm going to stop it here with this first part of Elevation. Thank you very much for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. And I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.